succession. It is called as ecological succession. So succession is nothing but the general universal process which happens in the formation of share. How it is formed, how a particular community is adapted to the environment, how the particular community is transferred into a stable community. So it's all started with a single species, and when population increases over a period of time, it becomes a community. That it will be classified into major community and minor community based on the number of species. Then it develop into an ecosystem. So this kind of development of an ecosystem can be affected naturally or by man-made activities. Say for example, if there is a forest and there is a forest fire, then the entire forest, there is a possibility that the entire biodiversity of the forest may get affected because of ground fire. If it is ground fire, the impact is not going to be much as like a ground fire. This the ground fire the sediments will be used as nutrients for the next organisms to survive, so the forest will renew in a few decades. Whereas in the ground fire, the entire canopy of trees will be lost. Once the canopy of trees is lost, the productivity is lost. So succession is all about how a community is transferred from the pioneer community to a climax community where the organism or the species gains its stability. We call it as climax community. So take an example in the terrestrial ecosystem. So complete back and barren land, where we can see that the life or possibility of life will be zero. Over a period of time, the possibility of life will be only microorganisms. Lichens and mosses. So what happens here is like these microorganisms give nutrients or try to change the potential of a soil. So when the nutrients from this bioorganisms or lichens, mosses, once they are there, their volume decomposes and it will act as it acts as a sediment which deposits in the soil substratum, and it will be used by other species as a nutrients. So when there is a mating land, the first community will be of lichens and mosses, and over a period of time it will be developed into a annual plant. So plant which survival period will be very limited. Say for example, it will be of 3 months, 4 months or 1 year. These kind of plants, once their lifetime is over, it will get decay, decompose, and the sediments will remain in the soil, and it will act as a nutrients to the other species. So this species which initiate the process is called pioneer community or initial community. So once after the annual plants get decay, their residues will settle down in the same place. It will act as a nutrient. So initially the land which is devoid of nutrients now will accumulate some sort of sediments from the dead and decay of the own individual species plants, and then transform into manure for the production of other species. So over a period of time what happens is that it will be converted into a perennial plants. So when perennial plants grows, and later it will be developed into trees. Trees will start growing, and over a period of time they will be converted into a forest. So here the transformation from an initial community or the pioneer community where the productivity of life will be very less since there won't be any nutrients. So these are the species which has to promote nutrition by their life cycles. Once it is dead, it becomes sediments, and the sediments will be used as a manure for the next community. So community of lichens and mosses will be converted into a community of plants, and community of plants is converted into a community of trees, and the community of trees, when their number increases, we call it as forest, as a climax community. So this is called climax community. The series of events which is happening in between the pioneer and climax community we call series. SERES. So this is not only for grasses or trees or plants. It happens for all other organisms. Say for example, in the beginning there will be very microorganisms, and over a period of time during the growth of annual plants or the perennial plants, the organisms will differ. Now rabbit, rat, snake, lizard will be a part of it. There are certain cases we need to consider as an example from aquatic ecosystem too. In a terrestrial ecosystem, the succession is bringing pioneer community to climax community. This is an example. If you consider aquatic ecosystem, take an example of a small pond which is in the forest. So what happens in the forest is like if there is no rainfall, a consecutive rivers or a continuous drought, what happens in the pond is the water get reduced. So forest actually is going to be trees on the side and some aquatic plants too. So when these plants die off, when there is a residue from the trees, leaves shed their leaves, all will get sediments into the aquatic ecosystems. So once they settle down and decompose, they become a sediment in an aquatic ecosystem. If this particular pond is filled with sediments and this is all and that will lose the capacity to hold the water during the rainy season or even in the normal season. So what happens in the next generation is like what was aquatic for over a period of long period of time will convert into a terrestrial ecosystem. So this will happen. So water gets reduced continuously and there is an increase in sediments flow from the dead and decay of plants and organisms in this aquatic ecosystem. Over a period of time, this aquatic ecosystem will completely convert into a terrestrial ecosystem. Even this is also called as succession. So succession is all about how a community begins their life and how a community becomes a stable community either by establishing their own ecosystem or changing their ecosystem. If the change in the community is brought by the same species, then we call it as autogenic succession. When I say succession, I told you very clearly, it is between the pioneer community and the climax community. It may be n number of species which may overrule the other. Say for an example, in an aquatic ecosystem or an ecosystem which is nearer to the estuary or seas, and we have transportation model ship which has water to maintain the stability, we call it as basalt. This water will carry organism which is not native to the particular species. Say for example, if a ship travels from South Africa to India or it reaches the coastal area of Kerala and the ship contains algae which is not native to the India. It may be acquired from South Africa. So now the problem is like this species will enter into the ecosystem of aquatic ecosystem of Kerala or a different species, we call it as invasive species. This species will invade and overrule the population of a particular species which we call as a native species. What happens is like one species will be eliminated and this invasive species will be dominated. Either it may be a plant or a tree or a microorganisms or it may be a snail or anything, any species, invasive species which dominate the particular area which prevent the growth of indigenous species, then that kind of succession is called allogenic succession. If succession is brought by the same community, then we call it as autogenic. If it is different community, it may be for invasive species, then it is called allogenic succession. And the next topic is autotrophic succession, heterotrophic succession. We know what is autotroph. Autotroph is green plants. If a succession is brought by green plants, which depends on their own for the production of energy, then that succession is called autotroph succession. Say for example, a grassland can be converted into a perennial plant or the tree or anything just because like if consider these two lines as the end of a continent and you have grasses you have small trees, and you have forests. The movement of animals, the migration of birds, the migration of cattle. When I say cattle, it is like zebra, any animal which is within the wildlife. So movement of animals from one place to another will take place within the mid part of a subcontinent. They are not going to the end of the continent. So what happens here is like the birds and animals will migrate seeds. When they migrate, they transform seeds from one place to another, which results in the formation of new species to generate. So here there is a possibility that new life or new plant can be produced. If any fruit seeds is transferred from one place to another, there is a possibility that this species may not be indigenous to this particular species, but it will develop similar. So in the succession, the life or the growth or nutrients of the succession will be high in the middle part of a continent rather than the both end of the continent. So once if it is replaced by another tree or another autotroph, then we call it as autotrophic succession. If it is the succession is done by heterotrophs, then we call it as heterotrophic succession. Heterotrophs. Say for an example, when there is a mass migration of heterotroph animals, which depends on autotrophs for their food. Sometimes there will be millions of cattle will be migrating from one part of area to another in search of resources or for the welfare or the better habitat. So in that case, that community will be called coming under the succession of heterotrophic community. So in succession, all we have to see is series, pioneer community, climax community, autotrophic, heterotrophic, autogenic and allogenic. So this is all about ecological succession. It is a part of energy flow in an ecosystem. Thank you.